in the here and now. Otherwise, you're coming into sort of stuff that's stuffed in the past and you're putting into the present. And those prejudices are going to taint and contaminate whatever the fresh or new experience would be, right? You have the opportunity to resolve something with somebody, but you bring up the past and blah, 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 and now you're fighting again. So there might be things to work through, but let's have a grounding. It's going to allow for us to come to a new, pristine space. And if you're having this, as what was taught to me in the experiences that I had with people who sort of mastered this, and they had this sense of where I go in this experience, which I'll explain a bit more in just a second, there was sort of a celebration for them now. It's like, hey, how are you? You just showed up. And it's like, hey, yesterday we were fighting. Oh, that was yesterday. Hey, what's going on, And if there's something apology due or something to be straightened out, it happens naturally, but it's sort of like it's already there. It's like, okay, everything's starting new. It's fresh. It's brand new. It's wonderful because you might be treated to the experience of just being loved. And so there might be tea or something else that's offered, a cookie, a crumpet. And then you sort of engage and you begin this from space. Exploration, this metasphere endeavor. Now it's really important because in this CARES model, the experience is the quality of the engagement. So again, the CARE model, it's community action research engagement. This science, so this sort of study, is really wonderful in the way that I can get you and the moment and appreciate things to such a degree where before, because of my tainted or prejudiced things that came into the space, I wasn't allowing for myself or for you, because I want to be permission-oriented here, to sort of just be you and to sort of just appreciate that we have this opportunity now to engage. And as a researcher or a social scientist coming into the space, I'm telling you that the clarity that you get and the opportunity that then presents itself for you just to be present, which you can now observe, but also you realize as being part of this experience, you yourself are being checked in, right? So it's the observer being observed. So you're checking things out, but now I'm more free to examine my own whatever comes up for myself. So it's a conscious observation. And it's a bit more free of judgment. I can catch something and I might go somewhere where I might in the past, particularly thinking of an ex-girlfriend, that, something would tip her off, but you catch yourself so you don't go there. And that's what happened. It's like, oh, you caught yourself. Where some people decide to, which is really poor in my judgment, it's like they caught themselves in the moment, but they still chose to go there, and they ruined that moment, and they just exploded, and everybody felt so uncomfortable and cringed. Read about my writing at cringefactors.com. So it's the things that we put upon ourselves, which is the labeling and the calling out. And the sense and the temptation could be there, and it's something perhaps to be examined, but maybe not in this moment, because ruining this presents that. And we all know what that is, where we don't want to go. And we're actually creating it. And if you're going to be a social scientist and sort of, conscious researcher in this regard of exploring what ultra beingness is, we want to stop dis, D-I-S, stop dis. So dis, if you look at the word and just, go to a dictionary and start with DIS, you can see a lot of words that follow, right? So disorientation is my concern. I want to stop dis in the way that if there's a disabling, something that we're causing that's disruptive. And again, there could be times where things have its purpose or things play out for whatever reasons. The distinction between this and that can be very disoriented because I'm now talking about projections that are just in my mind, that which is out there. And because I have a dispersion or some kind of judgment or interpretation of it, well, I've sort of taken what was present and pristine, and now I've put the attention, whether it's the subject we're talking about, and sometimes people are very much so where they can't sort of keep their thoughts going. I apologize if you're experiencing it right now in this talk. It's sort of like the distinction between this and that takes you out of the current present moment experience and puts people into their heads. And we want to be careful because I write quite a bit about that in my Morb writing, or what I call masstrance.com. And the Morb is the unaware entity that's playing out in that realm of that. So it's a projected, what I call noun reality, what's known to Morb. And noun reality is people, places, and things, and that's all they talk about. And it's projected in their mind. It's into their heads. It's out there. in illusion. And the citizens of the mass trance, kind of gone off on the cares thing, but this is where we want to be careful of. We've put people into their projections. Well, now they start playing out their roles, which I again write about in cringefactors.com. So you've now sort of inculcated, you've sort of like given people a life sentence in the way that, you talk about them, or they hear you say things in a way that sort of reinforces this false identity, this false consciousness, this morbidity. MORB stands for the modus operandi of rational behavior that is the result of our conditioning and extreme conformity. Masstrance.com. There's quite a bit of this. So my work is really about helping people wake up out of the mass trance, which includes myself, because I know I'm in it. But this idea of being this cares person is that I want to come into this as a conscious explorer. And I'm always learning more, right? Because that's the goal of this, is refinement of practice. And the practice of being present is really what we're talking about. And I think this is what distinguishes the cares model on this conscious sort of collective type potential, where we come at this opportunity in such a way it's like, whoa, the people are here, right? So this particular collective, they're calling themselves CRISP, and it's a good name, right? Of course, there's a social psychology journal with that name, but anyway, it's cool though, because we're actually actualizing it. Well, I'm saying the we, it's like, because I really believe I'm part of it. Excuse me. So anyway, let's wrap it up. And so I think I gave the distinction to it. So let's get the final aspect here, which is what the promise was, the premise. And so you all been waiting for it, right? You all being the one person listening. And I appreciate it. Thank you. Is the stepping into the experience and the here and now, the metasphere. So the metasphere is really important because it is the sort of the vibe that we all have in a room, and it could be part of the national narrative, the fashion trend, if you're at a club, or you're in your corporate boardroom, you're just getting together with some buddies at the bar, whatever it can be, or at the library, you got a study group going, or you're having a community conversation.com, which is my work. You have a sense of things to where you're part of something and you're feeling it. So it could be part of the environment in which is felt, right? So it could be the temperature of the room or what's going on and all that. And I write quite a bit about this in Rec. Go back into Mike'sMastermind.com and talk about the formula for bringing down the stodgy old paradigms that impinge. And how do we do that without anybody really getting hurt or being so disruptive that we have chaos? So there's an elegant way to do this. And the way we show up in this cares practice is sort of to be a part of things that sort of naturally in your making of the moment. And the way you show up, people just kind of gravitate to this sort of quote-unquote higher consciousness, or the way of this refinement in the way of our ultra being present, ultra being loving in its capacity. This is the exploration. So stepping into the metasphere is kind of the key strategy that Dr. Jubb sort of taught me when I was in Sedona. And of course, being part of the Jubb tribe, we all had totems or spirit names, and I was Grey Wolf. So it's quite a bit to talk about that in another talk, and in different dimensions of how me, show up in different communities. I have nicknames, and I've got like 4 or 5 of them actually. But in this particular round, hanging out with the urban natives, I'm called Grey Wolf, and it's sort of special when Grey Wolf shows up, because Grey Wolf in their tradition is kind of special. Grey being invisible, and the wolf being the teacher. So the invisible teacher, ooh. And so it's invisible to myself, and yet there might be something here. Okay, so the consideration here was we were going to a health food store. That's what the story is. And as we stepped in, Happy Faces, which is Dr. David Jubb's spirit name is, turned to me and goes, Grey Wolf. Oh, what? They just gave away all your power. He said, when you walked into the store and all the bright lights, and you're just like walking all over the place, you're just going to walk into the aisle. It's like you're just rambling and you're going to start buying stuff. You have no sense of where you are, do you? I'm in the health food store. I said, mate, Grey Wolf, the element of things, where we're present, on this planet or Earth. Because remember, this is sort of something talking from ancient wisdom. Would be a sense of where we are first, and having a vestibular or intuitive or gut sense. It's like, well, what is it that I'm feeling first before anything happens, Before those bright lights sort of overwhelm us, what is it? What's going on? And that's what you have first by what you're feeling. So you're coming into a space or a room or a feeling of anything happening, you first got to feel what's going on. So what's happening? What is your intuition saying to you? And that's where you begin your listening. So you could be listening to yourself say something about yourself. And I write about this quite a bit in the morbid working, where I'm adding morb in the ID. The ID makes us morbid because we don't realize that our ID is basically ID, internal dialogue. So it's what we're saying to ourselves about ourselves. And if we can capture this a little bit, this would help into a realizing, self-realization of I awareness. I awareness is like, well, what kind of awareness would you have out there, which is that? No, that. Or is it going to be this, the here and now? And this presentness begins with this gut sense of what am I feeling, what am I sensing? It's so important to check in with this because this is the grounding. I said, well, werewolf, well, then you can listen because you can hear what's really going on. You can listen to other people and rationalize to what you're interpreting about that because you're hearing it and you're listening to it. That's going to reveal quite a bit. And only then can you see. Wow. That was profound to me because we in a visual culture have it in reverse. We're presented with images, and there's a whole science about this called semiotics, right, which is the reading of signs. And a lot of it just happens to be sort of, again, interpreted by what we think about things, whether it's branding or what images represent to us and symbology. Quite a bit is there. But there is that. So coming to it, we can have a full recognition and appreciation for what it is. That's fine, right? But the understanding first comes into what and how I'm responding to. And that can only happen if I'm first grounded and having a sense of who I am, how am I present, how am I grounded. And this sensation is going to allow me to open up to sort of what this particular experience, or for what I write in my morb theory, is the noun reality. That which is projected, that which is lived in experience. And to get a real handle on it, particularly from another person's point of view, is to first just be present to it, empty, so that the vessel can be filled with whatever that is, if needed to be examined, and so also can be cleared. What I mean by cleared, it dissipates like a cloud. So it's going to allow for something for other people in their own experience to self-realize. And that's the key to this work. Because if we're going to look at becoming change agents, and we're really talking about transformation here, where we can have a desirable, sustainable future, it has to begin with us. I talk about this in self-liberation, how to get out of our own stories. And Guy Finley, who is the protege of Vernon Howard, Guy Finley, who lives up in Grants Pass, Oregon, is well worth researching and reading. I was fortunate to spend time with him and interview him. Talks about getting out of our own stories and letting it go. And the same thing with Dr. Jubb and the work of Krishnamurti and many others. Deepak Chopra, living within the gap, being a bit more between thought of things, right? Gives us a little bit more of the sensation of being here and now. And this is what I relate to as ultra being, present, as a gift, and loving. And if we're going to be social science researchers, it's a little bit more of a spiritual perspective, perhaps, to have this undertaking of the experience of how I'm present. But this quality of engagement, wow, it's so transformative in the way that people get you get the situation, you work through, if there's going to be issues, at least a bit more smoother, quicker, and in a refined manner. When I'm talking about less disruptive, less people are hurt or impinged or rejected or felt left out, which is not what we're here to cause, right? The engagement, if we're looking at creating a desirable, sustainable future, something that becomes really something that the experience is so engaging that you and the participants are so immersed in. This realization and this experience is enlightened. And you get it. And you've had those moments, I'm sure, with someone that you loved or just enjoying yourself. And it could have been at a movies or a game or just sort of just laughing with someone close, a friend of yours, or just thinking about something that sort of put you into that, with that moment. You experienced it sort of as real as here and now, and sort of you loved it. And perhaps gave you a deeper, more appreciation for it, better understanding. And that quality of engagement evolving, moving forward within this space, is towards something, looking at what this would be, what could be a case study or something that, it's to be realized or change as an outcome or desirable. And the desirables are what your clients are asking you to do. And I'm talking again as a social scientist, like, our corporate culture sucks. Well, people have a really bad attitude. We want to improve morale in the prison. There could be really some challenged things going on. but yet we're talking